one of the instruments suddenly started beeping and flashing. Lorenzo's injured arm suddenly twitched, then went limp. Judy instinctively grabbed the man's arm and looked at the instrument in alarm. They had no idea what they were seeing on the screen, since they weren't doctors. They just noticed the change. "I hate being so helpless," Judy complained. "Relax. The system is completely automatic." The figures and numbers on the screen slowly returned to the position they had been before the twitch. "Lorenzo, don't do this to me," Judy whispered. "I need you. If you need him, why didn't you take better care of him? It's your fault too." "It's not my fault, he's so clumsy," Judy apologized. "I didn't tell him to climb up that thing, then fall off it, break his arm, and even faint so he'd lose as much blood as possible before I found him. You can blame Lorenzo for trying to remove the pancake stuck to the ceiling before you see it and make a fuss about it. And you can blame him for not daring to go find a ladder so you wouldn't ask him where he was going, but instead stacked the dining room chairs on top of each other. How long was he lying unconscious in a pool of blood? Fortunately, only for a few minutes. Myra heard the crash and pulled the earphones out of my ears. The earphones, because you were comfortably watching a DVD while Lorenzo was making pancakes," Kathleen shouted. "Then he could have bled out of you. If your 2-year-old daughter hadn't signaled, you wouldn't even notice. I didn't tell him to mess around with making pancakes. But what the food processor puts in front of him is not good for him. He needs pancakes made by hand, just like her grandmother used to do at home." "Pancakes," Lorenzo whispered and slowly opened his eyes. Kathleen stood up from the bed, leaving Judy alone with the waking Lorenzo. Kathleen only noticed as she walked down the hallway that she was still in her pajamas. When the emergency alarm woke her up, she didn't have time to get dressed. She just ran to the scene of the accident as she jumped out of bed. The Medi-robot was just securing Lorenzo to the stretcher when Kathleen entered. The household robots had already started to tidy up the blood-stained kitchen. And Laurie, who had come running in the meantime, was calming the 2 startled little children. The stretcher rose 1/2 meter high, then floated along the hallways towards the intensive care unit. Judy and Kathleen couldn't even run after it. On the way to the intensive care unit, Kathleen's communicator signaled a call. Annabelle asked what had happened. Kathleen explained briefly. "Oh, then I don't have to go there, do I? You'll be fine without me. I've just stumbled upon some very interesting material," she said, and hung up. Ted didn't even ask about the reason for the distress call. "He doesn't even want our company at other times," thought Kathleen, "but the fact that he's not even interested in the distress call is rude." Kathleen went back to her quarters. She took off her bloody pajamas, threw them in the trash can, and then stepped into the shower stall. For lack of a better word, it was called a shower stall, but it wasn't quite that. They named things that were even a little like things on Earth in terms of earthly names, but they couldn't even name many things because they didn't have words for them. The shower, the intensive care unit, the Medi-robots, the library, the dressing room, the kitchen robot, the garbage disposal, and much more were more and different than what the earthly concept included. The ship surrounded its passengers with a comfort that was new even to Judy, who came from a wealthy family. Kathleen enjoyed her morning refreshment without self-consciousness. First, a pleasant, warm mist filled the shower cabin, then a fine, warm airstream dried her skin and hair. Finally, a fragrant skincare spray fell on the dry skin. Kathleen stepped out of the cabin, fresh and invigorated. She stood in front of the huge mirror in the dressing room and imagined the dress she wanted to wear. The dress already fit her. She didn't even have to put it on. The smell of coffee greeted her in the dining room. Kathleen sat down at the table. The kitchen robot rolled over and placed her usual breakfast in front of her: toast, butter, jam, and latte. After breakfast, she sat down in front of the communicator. As she did every morning, she divided the screen into the usual 6 windows, so that she could see everything she wanted to see at once. 5 windows showed the living rooms of the Earth passenger suites, and the 6th showed the space panorama obtained from the ship's external sensors. This time, instead of the space image, Kathleen requested the intensive care unit in the 6th window. She touched this part of the screen first with her finger. The small window, covering the other small windows, opened up to cover the entire screen. "How is Lorenzo?" she asked. "Thanks, we're fine." Judy looked into the camera. He said a few words, but then fell asleep again. Meanwhile, the independent information system of the intensive care unit displayed Lorenzo's health parameters on the screen. Finally, he summarized the situation in a short sentence that even laymen could understand. "The injured person is in stable condition and is improving." Second, he opened the window that showed the living room of Ted's suite.